let's get into some of the different ways that we can automatically enroll devices or bulk enroll devices into our Microsoft Intune. So to start with, here we are on endpoint.microsoft.com. We're going to go over to Devices and then Enroll Devices, and we'll take a look at Windows first. And as you can probably imagine, this is all going to start with automatic enrollment. We need to make sure that automatic enrollment in the Windows enrollment area is turned on, in which in my case it is. Just always remember that when you first open up Intune, when you set up Intune, you have an Intune subscription and all that, this is usually set to none. So you got to set this to all, or you can also set it to some if you only want to affect certain groups. Okay, now as far as device enrollment goes, it's only MDM that matters, MAM does not. But if you do want to be able to deploy apps and all that, which I'm not really explaining in this video, but if you did want to deploy apps, you need to make sure MAM is turned on as well. Okay, so that's the main starting point. Now I'll show you a few different methods. Some of this you may already be familiar with. For one, if you've got a hybrid domain joined machine, meaning it's part of a domain already, and you've got like Azure AD Connect and all that connecting your on-premise domain to the cloud, Microsoft has a little article here, enroll Windows 10 device automatically using group policy. Now it's not just Windows 10, it's Windows 11 and all that as well, but ultimately it walks you through step by step. Basically you set this to all. We've done that already, and then you can use group policies to enroll a Intune device. Okay, so if I jump over here to my domain controller and I go to Server Manager and I go to Tools, I can open up Group Policy Management. Alright, go over here to Group Policies. I've actually already got a GPO called Auto Enrollment, but if I wanted to create a new one I could, just like that, but I'll just edit the one I've got, edit that. Then we're going to go under Computer Config Policies, Administrative Templates. Alright, and then we'll go to Windows Components and scroll down to where it says MDM. And this is the policy right here that's got to be turned on. So that needs to be turned on. Now this can be enrolled based on user credential, or it can be based on device credential. They also tell you here you can specify an MDM application ID, but if you read this, it also tells you that this is just optional and only required if for automatic enrollment if you're using multiple MDM applications. Only MDM application we care about right now is Intune. So you just got to make sure that's turned on, and then of course this GPO must be applied. And so I've just basically dragged and dropped it over the domain. It's applied to the domain. Okay, so every device out in the domain would automatically try to enroll into Intune. Okay, now granted, you got to remember that this is only going to work if you are in a hybrid environment. So what about auto enrollment if you have a machine that is not in a hybrid environment? For example, if I jump over to my NYCCL11, this machine is not part of the domain, okay, currently. So in fact, I can prove that if I go Start, if I go to Settings, and I go to System, scroll down to the bottom and go to About, and then look at Domain or Work Group, you'll notice that it's just Work Group. So it is not part of a Microsoft domain. Okay, so what about bulk enrollment for these types of machines? Okay, well, if you look, Microsoft has an article about that. If you do a quick search on Google or Bing for bulk enrollment for Windows devices, they tell you that the way you would approach this is by creating a provisioning package. Now you can actually create a provisioning package by downloading the Windows ADK, Windows Assessment Deployment Toolkit, and deploy provisioning packages that way. It's just a file that has configuration in it that you can run, and it just automatically does things. Like it'll automatically configure things, change the name of the computer, join domains, or join Azure AD, or whatever it is that you want it to do. Okay, Or if you don't want to download the entire Windows ADK, you could just download the Configuration Designer tool, which you can get out of the store. So what are they talking about? Well, let's jump over here to my Windows 11 box. Let's hit Start. Let's go to the store. And if we search for Windows Configuration Designer, you'll see it right here. We can click on it, and then we can tell it to get that store application. All right. So this little application that we're downloading is going to let us create provisioning packages. Provisioning packages, again, are just little XML files that will instruct the computer to do certain things, whether it be to uninstall some software, install some software, rename the computer, join a domain, join Azure AD, whatever it may be. All right, so we've got that installed. You can see it showing up right here, but we'll click Open. That's going to open up the Windows Configuration Designer, so we'll give that just a moment to pop up on the screen here. All right, now you'll see these little wand symbols because these are called wizards. We're going to click on Provision a Desktop Device. And then it's going to make us create a project, and we'll just call this Auto Enrollment Provisioning. And then we'll click Finish. All right. At that point, it's going to bring us to this screen here. And so this is where if we wanted to have a machine renamed something, we can rename. It's very similar to how Autopilot does it. We could say something like ELP for Exam Lab Practice, and then I could say %rand :5%. That would basically name every one of my machines ELP dash and put a random 5-digit number on the end of it. We could put a product key in here. We could specify whether this is a shared device or not. Remove pre-installed software if we wanted, which is cool. You know, kind of wipe everything off, especially if this is a new computer. We could set up the network. We want it to join the Wi-Fi or whatever. Like I could, maybe my Wi-Fi is called ELP Wi-Fi for Exam Lab Practice Wi-Fi, right? Specify, you know, the password for that, and then go down here to Account Management, and this is where things really matter. This is what I really wanted to show you. So if I wasn't, you know, working with Active Directory, if I was going to do Active Directory, if I got a domain, I want to do the auto enrollment method for the domain. But if this is just part of Azure AD, then you would click this right here. From there, we can tell it to go ahead and refresh Azure AD credentials if we want, and we can do what's called a bulk enrollment token. This bulk Azure AD enrollment token, you have an expiration date so that it's only valid during a certain time, because anybody using this provisioning package could then enroll a machine. Granted, you do have to be an admin to deploy this, but I'm going to click Get a Bulk Enrollment Token. It's going to have me put my credentials in. All right, so permission required. Windows Configuration Designer says the app would like to view your basic profile, maintain access to your data. That's fine. Consent on my behalf. I'm going to click Accept. All right, retrieving the bulk token, and there you go. And we could, and so that's done. Now, if we wanted, we could also say, create a local administrator account on the local machine if I wanted to for myself. Maybe I'm going to call it JC admin, and then, you know, give it a password. At that point, we're ready to move on. We'd click next. If we had any applications we wanted to deploy, we could use a provisioning package for that. And then we have certificates we want to add, use provisioning package for that. At that point, we are ready to go. We can also protect the contents of the provisioning package with a password so that somebody can't go in and look at it. It'll basically encrypt it. All right. And it tells you that my package is ready to go. All right. So you can see right there, the provisioning package has been created, auto enrollment package, and we're ready to go. Okay. So at this point now, I could put this on a flash drive as an admin, or store it on a server. As long as the machine has connectivity with it, I could. So if I had let's say 10 new machines that came in today, and I wanted to just quickly get those deployed and all that. I could just copy this down or pop my USB drive in or copy it over the network and then run the provisioning package, and it's going to re-provision the machine. It's that easy. Now, the final way, of course, that you can enroll into Intune is Autopilot. Autopilot, we have Autopilot available, and you should be familiar with Autopilot, right? If I come back over here, we know that we can do Autopilot, deployment profiles and devices and all that stuff, okay? In fact, if I go over to devices, I actually deployed this machine right here, client 11, using Autopilot. So you should already be familiar with that. All right, so that's going to wrap up the different ways we can do bulk enrollment for Windows devices. All right, let's move on now to the Apple side of things. So we'll click Devices, we're going to go to Enroll Devices, and we're going to click Apple Enrollment. All right, so with Apple Enrollment, bulk enrollment methods, it's not too different from the concept of sort of like Autopilot, in that in a Windows environment we have Autopilot, and we could communicate with the vendor of the machines we're buying, and they can supply device ID information. It's a very similar idea to that. So to kind of help you visualize this, the first thing we'll do is look over here under bulk enrollment methods. Don't forget, we also have to have the push certificate and all that configured, but go to bulk enrollment methods, and we click on this Apple configurator, and this is where we would manage devices. So essentially what we can do with Apple is we can purchase devices from Apple directly, and we can get the serial numbers of those devices, and they can be added here. So we can have that. We can import the serial numbers here if we want, and basically as a comma separated value file, very similar to how we do with Autopilot in Windows devices. All right, so that's a pretty neat idea. And then from there we can go here and create what's called a configurator profile. So they tell you here to enroll iOS devices through Apple Configurator. Click here. So you click here, give it a name. Let's say it's iPhone. We'll call it iPhone deployment. Click Next. All right, user affinity. We'll say enroll based on the user affinity, or enroll without user affinity. So what's the difference? Well, enroll with user affinity means it's going to associate the device with a user account, which if this is going to be the user's actual device that they use, maybe you are using corporate-owned devices for the users, you're issuing them phones or whatever that are theirs to keep while they work for the company, then you're going to want to go with that. Now, if this is a shared device, like this is a device that is going to be shared by multiple people, that is when you would go without user affinity. Okay, so that's how that would work. I'm going to choose with user affinity, select where users must authenticate. You can say company portal, or you can do setup assistant. So setup assistant means the brand new phone, and what will happen is they unpackage the phone, it'll connect to the internet. As long as you've registered the serial number, then it'll pop up this basically wizard, the setup assistant wizard that will walk them through doing it. Or you could require that they just download the company portal. Okay, so at that point we click Next, we click Create, and then you have now officially created your Apple Configurator profile. All right, so you got your serial numbers here, you'd have your serial numbers here, and then what you would do is you would assign your profile based on that serial number. All right, and that's how that's going to work. All right, so it's pretty straightforward. I don't think it's very complicated for to grasp. Now, the other piece of this is we have what is known as the enrollment program tokens. All right, and sometimes referred to as the device enrollment program. And this is something this is part of this as well. If you're buying a bunch of devices, then basically you'll go through this enrollment program with Apple. And if you're in a business environment, you are somebody called a ABM. ABM stands for Apple Business Manager. Now, this is also something that's offered to the education systems out there. And in that case, you're what's called as an ASM. You're called an Apple School Manager. All right. So you click that, and then from there, this is where you would go, and you'll notice you've got enrollment program tokens that you can utilize that you would have to have. So you click add on that, and then you basically go down this little wizard here, or down this list of items that got to be checked off. Okay, so of course I would have to agree, and then it says download your public key. All right, so we got that downloaded. The next thing would be if I was going to be using this as an Apple Business Manager or School Manager. So to do that, we click this create a token via Apple Business Manager. We're going to click that, and if we don't have an account, we would need to enroll, right? So we could enroll into the Apple Business Manager, specify all this information here, and at that point, we could enroll, all right? So enroll your organization to buy content. I'm not actually going to go through that process. I'm just kind of walking you through it. And but you could create an Apple Business Manager, create your Apple ID. At that point, you're able to upload the token information that they provide to you. Once that's done, at that point, you now have the ability to purchase Apple devices, and you can purchase them online as a company. They'll supply you with the serial number. You'll register them, and it's sort of like Autopilot in that when these devices get shipped to you and they get unboxed, the user will be forced to enroll them in Intune. As soon as they get an internet connection, it's gonna enroll them into Intune. All right, they can be forced to have to download the company portal or go through the setup wizard in order to do it. So that is the idea of bulk enrollment. So, if I bought 50 new iPhones or something from Apple using this enrollment program, then they'd have to go through that process of enrolling the phones. Every time you issue a new phone out to somebody, they'd have to enroll it. Or you could use the Device Enrollment Manager. You could use a user account that enrolls on behalf of other users. So that's the idea there. All right, let's take a look at Android. All right, so the first thing we got to make sure, of course, we have is our managed Google Play account and all that. And then the other thing that has to happen is we have to have what's called a zero-touch account to do zero-touch enrollment. So when you click that, it's gonna want to authenticate you, and it's going to check to see if you've got what is called a zero-touch account with Google. Okay, and unfortunately, you have to register for one of those and all of that as an organization. Now, if you do a quick Google or Bing search for zero-touch enrollment with Android, you will find this article right here. Enroll your Android enterprise dedicated, fully managed, or corporate-owned with work profiles. And if we scroll down, you will find this area right here. It says to use this method for zero-touch, you're using zero-touch enrollment, you must be on supported devices affiliated with the supplier that is part of the Android zero-touch enrollment service. And then for more information, you can click this link right here. If you click that link right there, this is going to get us into what we would need to do. So the prerequisites: device running Android Pie 9.0 or later, an enterprise mobility management provider such as Intune, a zero-touch account created with authorized zero-touch resellers. So this is unfortunately why I can't show this to you, because you have to actually go through one of their authorized resellers to get a zero-touch account. Once you've got that account, once your company has gone through that process, it's not that complicated. I mean, you would just read the directions and go through it. At that point, you can start using these enrollment profiles, just like what we saw with Apple, where we can link profile information directly to these devices based on their serial number and all that. So now I can create these enrollment profiles based on what the needs are of my organization. Now, if we come back over to our, let's go back over here to our original document. So if you actually search for, search for zero-touch Android enrollment, this is going to be the article that Microsoft is going to pop up. All right. In fact, I will I will prove what I'm saying. If I go here and I type 0 touch Android and then Intune, just those keywords into Google or Bing, that's when you're going to find this article. So we'll go there. All right. But what I want to show you is these profiles. So the first profile I have is set up Android. So again, look at these, look at the names of these profiles. Personal owned devices with work profile, corporate owned dedicated devices, corporate owned fully managed user devices, or corporate owned devices for work profile. So that's what I want to explain. So if we look right here on this article, you've got for the personal device one right here. Okay, so if we click that, that's what they're talking about right here. So set up enrollment for personal loans. So what is that exactly? Well, it's for BYOD scenarios. Bring your own device. Not to be confused with bring your own drink, right? All right. But bring your own device. This is for personal device scenarios. And the idea is it creates a work profile on the device that you would utilize for the working environment, but it also has a personal side of that that's just for personal use, and it keeps all that separate. So somebody can utilize a personal device and they don't have to worry about. That's the thing a lot of people forget is they think Intune is not like a solution that's meant to spy on people. MDM solutions in general are not really meant to violate people's privacy, but if this is somebody's personal device, this is going to be the profile that we would go with, right? The next one we've got is you've got set up profile for corporate owned device. Okay, so corporate owned device. So the idea is this is a corporate owned device with a work profile. Single user is going to be using it. So this is intended for, again, for a single user that's going to be using this this device, right? So if we look over here, you'll see that as one of the options here. And the end user gets to basically keep their work and personal separated. So in this case, it's owned by the company, and the user is allowed to use it for company use, but they're also allowed to use it for some personal stuff as well. They don't have as much flexibility because they don't own it. The admin can set device passwords and device roaming data for Bluetooth and all that as well, and Bluetooth and all that, and then factory reset if they want. So they have more control using that profile type. All right. The next would be set up device enrollment for dedicated devices. Okay. So that gets over here. Dedicated device. So what's a dedicated device? So this would be like kiosk style device that's dedicated for a purpose, like they mentioned digital signage, ticket printing, inventory management, things like that. So that's what that would be for, a kiosk-based scenario. And then finally you've got set up enrollment for fully managed, and that would be this one right here. And this is an enterprise fully managed solution. In other words, this is intended for only work, not personal use. All right. So allow app installation managed Google Play only, block users from uninstalling apps, prevent users from factory resets. So this is going to give you the most control if you go that scenario with all this. All right. The other thing is they do support this this thing called the Android Open Source Project. This is an open source solution that people have been kind of tinkering around with, that you could research and learn about if you want. It isn't something really I go over here, but you can learn about that open source project, and this is going to be a solution where you could even have developers that develop using this open source project and tie Android to that if you want. Okay. So that is the idea. Hopefully that helps you now understand Android enrollment. In fact, hopefully that now helps you understand the different enrollments: Windows enrollment, Apple enrollment, and Android enrollment, utilizing the bulk methods of enrollment.